Hi there, pupils. It's time for us to reach for a higher level and learn something new. For our lesson today, we will be learning about following instructions and why is this important. I hope that the work we did so far on predictions and retelling are still fresh in your memory and that you have been doing some practice exercises on your own. Now, I want you to remember that making prediction is generally making a guess as to what happens next about something. Predictions can be made based on the use of pictures or specific words. You should remember also, in retelling, you are providing details of a story that you would have read or even a movie that you would have seen. You retell the story in summary form. The sequence of the events and the elements of a story are very important in retelling that story. Now let's get into our lesson for today. Following instructions. What do we mean when we say following instruction? What is an instruction? An instruction is detailed information or a guide about how something should be done or operated. Now, you might agree with me that following instruction is a part of everyday life. Every day, there is something that we need to ensure we take steps or we follow specific steps to get done. I am sure that your parents give you instructions at home, or even your teachers when you are being taught. And it can be done virtually even now. Now, when following instructions, we must attend to the details in spoken language to sequence the information in appropriate steps and to seek clarity if we have trouble remembering or recalling the information. Why is it important to follow instructions? Following instructions is one of the most important life skills. If we fail to follow instructions, we can end up getting hurt or not getting the right results. Depending on the nature of some task, failing to follow instructions properly can result in death, so you want to be careful. Instructions are important when driving, walking, cooking, or even taking medication. At school, we have rules, and those rules provide basic instructions for us to follow so that we could stay safe while we are at school. Now, we've been saying rules and cooking and all of that, and you may want to say, but those are all written. Now, keep in mind, or if you didn't know, you must know that some instructions can be given orally, which means that you have to listen. So, how can we improve our skills of following instructions? Or we could say following directions. If the instructions are being given orally, you want to make sure that you actively listen. What is it to actively listen? It means that you just don't hear. When you actively listen, you can better understand what you need to do. So you need to pay attention. Here's a trick that may help you. Pretend that there is going to be a quiz after the conversation if you are given instructions orally. Visually think about what is being said and maybe even repeat it in your head. You repeat it so you don't forget it. Take notes. Instead of trying to remember everything, you can write it down if you have the chance. There is nothing wrong with keeping notes. It shows that you are prepared, that you're organized, and that you want to get what you have to do done correctly. A more general guideline would be to ask questions. If you are even slightly unsure of what you are being asked to do, don't be afraid to question. Make sure the other person allows you the chance to find out what needs to be done and all the details that goes with that. Now, even when you are given a set of written instructions or guideline, before starting that task, read the steps carefully. Go through the checklist or each point carefully. Whenever there is a task that requires multiple steps, try organizing yourself. Ensure you have all the materials that you need and you can tick or check the things off as you go through. Make sure that you don't miss anything. Then, when you are done, be sure to review your work. Reviewing your work is always very important. Now, let's examine the following instructions at home and at school. At home, your parents may ask you to do something around the house. For example, wash the dishes and pack them away in the cupboard. Now, I know many times, children, if you're given the task to help wash the dishes, you just wash the dishes and you leave them there. But if you read the instruction carefully or if you listened carefully to the instruction given by your parents, they said, wash the dishes and pack them away in the cupboard. When you used to be in the classroom, your teacher may have asked you to follow commands within the classroom. Example, go to your bag and get your lunch. Or, with your work, your teacher might have said something like, copy the spelling words on the board, then put each of them in a sentence, or use each of them to make a sentence. So those are instructions that you could have been given at school. Go to your bag and get your lunch. So you wouldn't just go to your bag and stand there. There was something else you had to do. So you had to be paying attention. Or the work is given on the board, you have a list of words. And so you write the words and you sit back and you have nothing to do. But did you read the other part of the instruction that your teacher gave? Or did you listen carefully to what your teacher did? If you weren't sure, or if you aren't sure, you could ask Miss, or you could say, Miss, I am finished writing the words. What do I do now? And your teacher would remind you of the next step. We may even follow instructions to make something, like for instance, baking a cake or making a kite. Following instructions to complete these tasks are very important. Have you ever tried to bake a cake without remembering the steps or reading the instructions? I am sure that you did not end up with a cake. You have to know what to put first and how much of this to put and how much of that to put. So, these are some simple tasks that following instructions is very, very important. In our next lesson, I hope that we can look specifically at some of these tasks and follow instructions to see how the things would come out. Now, I have an exercise. I want you to listen as I read and see if you can complete the task. Bear in mind, I said one of the most important things to do when you are completing or when you are following instructions is to read the task carefully before starting anything. 1. Write your first and last name on the top of a paper. 2. Circle your first name. 3. Draw 5 small circles on the bottom of your paper. 4. Put an X on each circle. Are you there? I hope you're following and doing these activities. In the middle of the paper, add 10 plus 8 plus 12. 6. Cross out your last name with 2 lines. And the final step, only do number 1 and 2. Now, I followed those instructions. I hope that you are listening and following me at the same time. Now, let me show you what your work should look like. If you followed those instructions clearly, you would see that we only had to follow instructions 1 and 2. So, write your first and last name on the top of the paper and circle our first name only. But you might say, why? I had to read everything before I started the activity. Remember I said, before I started giving you the instructions, read the directions carefully before you do anything. So when you got to number 7, you would have seen that the last instruction there was only do number 1 and 2. So this is what your activity should look like, or this is what should be on your paper. Well, of course, with your own name. Now here I have another activity for you. So, use a piece of paper to complete steps 2 to 10. Are you ready? And I would read the instructions. Write your first name only in the middle of the paper. Draw a star next to your name. Draw a picture of your favorite sport. Color in the picture you just drew using crayons. Cross out your first name. Draw a single line through your name. Shout out loud, I am on number 7. Make sure everyone in the room can hear you. Create a border around your whole paper. Now raise your hand and wait for the teacher or someone to call on you and tell you to continue the next step. And the final step, do not do step 1 to 9. Put your pencil down and wait for the others to finish. Did I trick you? I didn't trick you. Remember I said, read the instructions thoroughly before beginning the task. So you would have seen again that the last step said, do not do numbers 1 to 9. Put your pencil down and wait for the others to finish. So you see, if you read carefully, you hadn't to do anything. All right, boys and girls, that was following instructions. I know you felt tricked today, but remember, when following instructions, you have to be able to listen carefully and you have to be able to read carefully. It says, do not do anything without reading all the instructions carefully. So, if you did that, if you listened to me and you did nothing, you're in goal. So great job for those who did nothing. And those who went ahead as I started to speak, Be careful, listen carefully before you do anything, or read the steps thoroughly before you start the task. So let's do a recap of our lesson. We said that an instruction is detailed information about how something should be done or operated. Following instruction is a part of our everyday life. It is our ability to act on the request of someone or to get something done. Following instructions requires us to pay attention to details, whether it's given in spoken language or it's written. In instructions, everything is given in a sequence and you must follow the appropriate steps. If you have trouble with following instructions, remember to ask for clarity or just recheck to make sure that you would have covered all the steps. Well, boys and girls, we have learned a lot on following instructions. Remember to make sure you practice when you are given tasks at home or even as you participate in your virtual classes. Until next time, stay safe and see you right here on the Literacy Ladder.